out of here. I did not invite you," my son shouted when I tried to sit at the table that I had prepared myself since 5 in the morning for his birthday. But it was my house. I stood up slowly, walked toward the door, and did something that left all the guests with their mouths hanging open. Do you know that moment when the floor disappears beneath your feet, when the words enter your ears but take a few seconds to reach your brain, because they are so absurd that your mind refuses to believe them? That was exactly what I felt that Saturday afternoon on March 23rd. There I was, standing with the apron still tied around my waist. That plaid apron I have used for 15 years, stained with barbecue sauce and grease from cooking so much. My hands were shaking, holding the white porcelain plate, the same set they gave me at my wedding and that I had cared for with such dedication for 42 years. The smell of the freshly made barbecue brisket still perfumed the entire living room. Golden balloons floated on the ceiling, and 30 people were looking at me with an expression somewhere between pity and second-hand embarrassment. And my son, my only son Mike, that boy I had carried in my arms, who I had watched over during nights of fever, who I had seen become an engineer, was there, red with anger, pointing his finger at me as if I were an intruder, a stranger in my own house. "Dad, do you not understand? This seat is taken." His voice broke the silence that had settled in the room. Emily, my daughter-in-law, was standing next to him with that discreet, almost invisible smile, but one that I knew well. It was the smile of someone who was winning a war I did not even know existed. I looked at the table, my dining room table, that solid oak table I had bought and paid off in 12 monthly payments when Mike was 8 years old. The embroidered tablecloth was mine. The plates were mine. The silver cutlery that had belonged to my mother was all there, shining under the light of the chandelier. Even the chandelier was mine, and I had no place at that table. I felt my chest tighten. It was not just the humiliation, it was something deeper, more painful. It was the feeling that everything I had fought for, every morning getting up at 5 to work as a carpenter, every dollar saved, every dream I had swallowed to make his come true, had turned into nothing. Less than nothing. A nuisance. But do you know what the most curious thing is? In that exact moment, while everyone expected me to leave crying, defeated, humiliated, something inside me woke up. A voice I had not heard in a long time. The voice of the 25-year-old Robert. The one who did not let himself get pushed around. The one who was not afraid. And that voice told me something very clear. Keep your head up and show them who really runs things here. I took a deep breath. I left the plate gently on the sideboard. I calmly took off my apron, folding it into quarters like I always do, and walked toward the door, feeling the weight of my 67 years on my shoulders, but also something new, the certainty that this night would not end the way he expected. Before leaving, I stopped, turned around, and looked at every face in that room. Mike's friends, his co-workers, Emily's family, and I uttered only 6 words that would resonate for months. Enjoy the party. Enjoy it a lot. And I walked out. But what no one inside knew, not even my son, nor that woman who called herself his wife, is that I was not running away. I was preparing for war. I slowly climbed the stairs, one hand on the wooden railing that I had varnished myself 3 times over the years. Every step creaked. There were 15 of them. I knew them by heart. 15 steps that separated me from that room full of people laughing, drinking the wine I had bought, eating the food I had prepared. Downstairs, I could already hear Emily's voice taking back control of the party, as if nothing had happened. "Come on, let's toast. Mike, honey, come here." Her voice was sweet, almost childish, in that way she used when she wanted to seem innocent. I went into my bedroom, the only room in the house that was still truly mine, and locked the door. My legs finally gave out. I sat on the edge of the bed, that marital bed where I had slept next to Helen for 30 years, and where I have slept alone for 12. The tears came, not the dramatic tears of soap operas. No, silent, hot tears that ran down and soaked the collar of my blue shirt. The shirt I had chosen with such care that morning, thinking I wanted to look good for my son's birthday. How foolish I was. I looked at myself in the wardrobe mirror. I saw a man with gray hair, wrinkles around his eyes, hands calloused from so much work. An invisible man, a man turned into a ghost in his own home. It was then that my gaze fell on the antique dresser, the dark mahogany one that had belonged to my grandmother, the bottom drawer that I never opened. I stood up slowly, still wiping the tears away with the back of my hand, and opened that drawer. Inside was a faded blue plastic folder. I took it out and felt the weight of the papers inside. I sat on the floor, leaning against the bed, and opened it. The deed to the house, bank transfer receipts, yellowed payment slips. Everything was there, every dollar I had invested in this house. $400,000 back then. It was a fortune. It was everything I had left from the insurance settlement, from Helen's accident, plus 23 years of my savings as a carpenter. Every invoice saved, every receipt. And there, on the last page of the deed, was his name, Mike Smith, 50% owner. I had put his name there out of love, because I thought that way I was guaranteeing my son's future. Because in my passionate fatherly mind, I imagined that one day he would take care of me the same way I had taken care of him. I ran my finger over that signature, my signature from 12 years ago, when I still believed in happy endings. Downstairs, I could hear the noise of the party getting louder. Laughter, music, someone broke a glass, and everyone yelled, "Cheers, good luck!" Emily let out a shrill laugh, and it was in that moment, sitting on the floor of my room with old papers scattered around me and the noise of the party I could not attend invading my refuge, that something inside me changed. It was not anger yet. No, it was something colder, more calculated. It was clarity. I had spent the last 3 years giving in, accepting, swallowing increasingly bitter pills, letting that woman turn my house into her territory, allowing my son to drift further and further away, treating me like a bothersome old man who had to be tolerated. But tolerance has its limits. I picked up my cell phone, a simple model, one of those with big buttons for older folks, and did something I never imagined I would do. I called Attorney Harris, the lawyer who had handled Helen's estate. It was 8:40 on a Saturday night, but he always answered his old clients. "Well, Mr. Smith, is everything okay?" "Attorney Harris, please, excuse the time." My voice sounded firm, and that surprised me. "I need to schedule an urgent appointment. It is about the deed to my house." There was a pause. "Did something happen?" "Yes." I looked at the papers on the floor. It happened that I finally woke up. We scheduled an appointment for Monday, first thing in the morning. When I hung up, I heard footsteps in the hallway. Someone was coming up the stairs. My bedroom door was not just closed, it was locked. But even so, I felt my heart race. 3 sharp knocks. "Dad?" It was Mike's voice, but now it was different. Lower, almost ashamed. "Are you okay in there?" I did not answer. "Dad, open the door. We need to talk." I put the documents back in the folder in the drawer. I got up from the floor. I straightened my shirt. I dried my face, and only after taking 3 deep breaths did I open the door. He was there, wearing that blue shirt I had ironed on Thursday. He had a strange expression on his face. It was not remorse. It was discomfort, as if my presence there in that state was ruining his perfect party. "Do you want to come down? They are about to cut the cake." He spoke as if he were doing me a favor. I looked into his eyes, those brown eyes that used to look at me with admiration when he was a boy. "No, thank you. I already had dinner," I lied. My stomach had been empty since noon. "Dad, do not be like that. Emily already apologized." "Oh, really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Well, no." He looked away. "You know how she is. She was nervous about the party. She wanted everything to turn out perfect. And I ruined the perfection. Is that it?" He did not say that, but he did not deny it either. I held the doorknob. Mike, you can go back to your party. I am fine. Very fine, actually. And I closed the door softly with control. I heard his footsteps walking away, hesitant at first, then faster, almost relieved. I went back to the bed. I did not lie down. I just sat there, looking at the closed drawer of the dresser, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something that was neither sadness nor resignation. It was power. The power of someone who knows something the others do not. The power of someone who has cards up their sleeve. The power of someone who has finally decided to play the game. The party continued until almost midnight. I heard every laugh, every song, every toast, and I stayed there in silence, planning, because they might have won that night. But the war was just beginning. Monday arrived like a blessing. The house was quiet. Mike had gone to work early. Emily slept late, as always. I put on my black dress pants, a beige shirt, and the brown jacket I wear for important occasions. I put on cologne, combed my hair, and put on comfortable shoes. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw the Robert I needed in that moment. Firm, determined, aware of his own worth. Attorney Harris's office was downtown, in an old 3-story building with a noisy elevator. I arrived at 8:15. He greeted me with a strong cup of coffee and a worried look. "Mr. Smith, tell me what happened." And I told him. Not everything. Some pains you keep to yourself. But I told him enough. He took notes in a yellow legal pad, frowning from time to time, shaking his head at other moments. When I finished, he let out a deep sigh. "You remember when you put Mike's name on the deed? I recommended making a will instead." I remembered. Of course I remembered. But back then, 12 years ago, I was still mourning. Helen had died just 3 months prior. I was alone, scared, with a 22-year-old son who had just finished his studies and started his career. It seemed logical to guarantee him something solid, concrete. I thought I was protecting him. I admitted quietly. I thought if something happened to me, at least he would have a roof over his head. And now I need to know, can I undo that? Attorney Harris opened a file, putting on his reading glasses. Legally, yes. The house was bought with your money. We have all the proofs. You included Mike as a co-owner out of generosity, without him contributing financially. That can be revoked, but it will be difficult and painful. Painful how? Like permanently breaking the relationship. Are you sure that is what you want? I thought of his shout, of Emily's expression, of the feeling of being kicked out of my own dining table. Attorney Harris, that relationship is already broken. I just had not realized it yet. He took off his glasses and wiped the lenses carefully. Then I need you to tell me everything, from the beginning. Every dollar invested, every sacrifice. We are going to build a solid case. And I did. I told him about Helen, my wife, my partner, the woman I met at 19 at a dance at St. John's Church. She was an elementary school teacher. I was an apprentice carpenter. We got married at 22, living in a tiny apartment in a suburb in Ohio, where the bed almost touched the stove. Mike was born 3 years later, a complicated delivery that left Helen in the hospital for 5 days. I worked double shifts that month to pay the medical bills when we brought our son home. I cried tears of joy holding that little pink bundle wrapped in a wool blanket. They were difficult but happy years. I worked from sunup to sundown. Helen gave private tutoring lessons until her eyes hurt. She saved every $50 bill, every spare dollar hidden in the pantry. When Mike turned 8, we were able to buy our first property, a 2-bedroom apartment. Nothing luxurious, but it was ours. I remember the pride on Helen's face when signing the deed. Our boy will have a roof, Robert. He will not know the struggles we knew. The years passed. Mike was a good student, studious, dedicated. He got a partial scholarship at a private engineering college. But partial was not full. We still had to pay the other half, $400 a month for 5 years. I took on extra jobs. I stayed at the carpentry shop until 10 at night. Our son was not supposed to know how much it cost. We did not want him to carry that weight. We wanted him to just study, to enjoy his youth, to build his future, until the accident happened. August 2013, a Tuesday. Helen was returning from a school field trip on a bus. A problem with the brakes. The bus crashed into a tree. 3 people died, Helen among them. Attorney Harris listened to me in silence. When I got to that part, my voice broke. He pushed the box of tissues toward me. The insurance company paid the settlement. After a year of paperwork, it was $500,000. It seemed like a lot of money, but it did not bring Helen back. It did not fill the emptiness of the house. It did not warm the other side of the bed. I took a tissue, blew my nose, and continued. Mike was in his junior year of college. I thought about giving up, about asking him to quit his studies and work. But he begged, "Dad, let me finish. It is Mom's dream." And how could I refuse? So I paid for every semester, every tuition bill until the end. $18,000 total over 3 years. Mike graduated with honors. He got a good job at a construction company. The irony, with what was left of the settlement and my savings, I bought the house where we live today. A 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb with a small garden and a garage. $400,000 in 2015. I put Mike's name next to mine because I thought it was fair, because he was my only son, because I told myself if I die tomorrow, at least he is protected. Attorney Harris wrote everything down, asking for receipts, organizing documents. And then he met Emily. My stomach churned just saying her name. 4 years ago at a work party. She was an administrative intern, 8 years younger than him. Pretty, I will not lie, but there was something in her gaze that made me uncomfortable from day one. Like calculation. You know when she looks at someone and you feel she is measuring everything? How much is he worth? How much does he cost? What can she get out of him? It was that. But Mike was enchanted, in love. And who was I to oppose? They got married quickly. 6 months of dating and they were already at St. Mary's Church. A small ceremony, just family and close friends. I paid for the wedding dress, $3,000 at a fancy boutique that Emily had chosen. I also helped with the reception, $25,000 more. Do you have receipts for all of that? I have everything, attorney. I keep everything. It is my nature. Keep, preserve, protect. Every invoice, every receipt, every wire transfer confirmation. Everything is in that mahogany dresser drawer. Attorney Harris closed his notebook, took off his glasses, and looked at me seriously. Mr. Smith, you built this life alone. You paid for this house alone. You supported this family alone. And now they treat you like an intruder. That is not fair. I know. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. That is why I am here. Because I am tired of being trampled on. I am tired of being invisible. And if I have to prove my worth with papers and contracts, so be it. He gave a sad smile. We are going to get justice. But be prepared. It is going to be difficult. It is already difficult, attorney. It has already been difficult for a long time. I just pretended not to see it. I left that office with a folder full of documents to deliver and a deadline. 15 days to gather everything. 15 days to build my defense. 15 days before dropping the bomb. And as I went down in that noisy elevator, looking at my reflection in the scratch mirror, I thought, Helen, wherever you are, give me strength. Because I am going to need every ounce of courage that exists in me. The war had begun, and this time I was not going to lose. I returned home that Monday, with my head boiling. I came in through the kitchen door. I left my bag on the table and heard voices in the living room. Emily was on the phone. Her shrill voice bounced off the walls. No, Mom, I already told you that gray couch does not match anything. We need something more modern. Do you see this house? It looks like it got stuck in the 90s. My house? She was talking about my house. I took a deep breath. It was not the time for confrontation, not yet. So I went to my bedroom. I closed the door and started digging through the drawers. I needed all the receipts, all the proofs. And as I rummaged through the old boxes and folders, the memories came rushing back like a flood. The invasion did not happen all at once. It was slow, progressive, like water eroding a stone drop by drop, until you realize the damage, and it is already too late. It started 3 years ago, right after the wedding. Emily arrived with 2 suitcases and a charming smile. Father-in-law, I promise I will take very good care of your son. I believed her. I hugged her. I kissed her on the cheek. I told her, this house is yours too. I should have bitten my tongue. The first few weeks she was discreet. She tidied up the couple's bedroom. She helped in the kitchen. She praised my cooking. Don Robert, your beef stew is the best I have ever tasted in my life. I smiled proudly, thinking, what a wonderful daughter-in-law my son found. But then came the suggestions. Father-in-law, do you not think these lace curtains are a little out of style? We could put up blinds. It is more minimalist. Minimalist. She loved that word. Everything had to be minimalist. I changed the curtains. I spent $300 on white blinds, which gave the living room the appearance of a doctor's waiting room. But she was happy, and I wanted her to be happy. Then it was the paintings. I had 3 paintings in the living room. A landscape I had bought at a local craft market in the countryside, another with a photo of Helen that I had blown up and framed, and a third that my mother had hand-embroidered before dying. One day I came home, and all 3 had disappeared. Emily, have you seen the paintings that were here? She was on the couch looking at her phone with that air of not wanting to be bothered. Oh, father-in-law, I put those away. It was too visually cluttered. I bought some abstract posters. Look how pretty. She pointed to the wall where there were now 3 black frames with spots of colors that meant absolutely nothing. And where did you put my paintings? In the storage room in the back. But do not worry. Everything is safely stored. I went to the storage room. I found the paintings tossed on top of old boxes. The glass on Helen's photo frame was broken. I held that picture against my chest and cried, right there, in the middle of the dust and cobwebs. But I did not protest, because I did not want to cause problems. I did not want to be that annoying, grumpy father-in-law who finds faults with everything, so I swallowed my anger and kept swallowing. She changed the Persian rugs I had in the living room. Those were my grandmother's, handmade over 50 years ago. She swapped them for some gray, shaggy rugs that shed and stuck to our clothes. It is Scandinavian style, father-in-law. It is super trendy. She replaced the embroidered throw pillows on the couch with plain cream-colored ones. She threw away my hand-painted porcelain tea set, a wedding gift from my godmother, because it takes up too much space in the pantry, and nobody uses that anymore. But the worst thing, the thing that truly broke me inside, was the wall clock. It was a solid bronze clock, heavy, with a glass pendulum and chimes. Helen had bought it in an antique shop in the downtown historic district. She had paid $800, which was a lot of money back then. It was a gift for our 15th wedding anniversary. She had a message engraved on the back. For Robert, who makes every second worth it, your Helen. That clock had marked every important moment of my life. It struck noon when Mike was born. It struck 7 in the evening when I received the news of Helen's death. It struck 10 at night when my son graduated from college. One day I came back from the grocery store and the wall was empty. I felt my heart race. Mike, where's the clock? He appeared on the stairs, drying his hair with a towel, unconcerned. What clock, Dad? Your mother's clock, the bronze one that was right there. Oh! He did not even look at the wall. Emily said it was too old. She threw it away. She threw it away? My voice came out in a scream I could not control. It was the first time I exploded, and the first time I saw his look change when he spoke to me. It was a look of impatience, of annoyance, as if I were exaggerating. Dad, for God's sake, it is just an old clock. We will buy another one. It was not just an old clock. It was your mother's. We have to move on, Dad. Move on. As if memory were dead weight. As if love were disposable. I ran to the backyard. I dug through the trash cans. Nothing. I ran to the street. The garbage truck had already passed. I went back into the house and cried for 2 hours, locked in the bathroom, with the faucet running so nobody would hear me. Emily never apologized, nor did she even show any remorse. But the invasion did not stop. She convinced Mike to turn my carpentry shop, that small workshop in the back, where I had worked for 30 years, into a home office. Father-in-law, you barely do woodworking anymore, right? And Mike needs a space to work from home. It was true that I had reduced my carpentry jobs. My eyesight was not the same. My hands hurt from arthritis. But that space was mine. It was my refuge, my little corner, my piece of identity, and I gave in. They removed my old workbench, the shelves of tools organized by type. They put in a modern white desk, a computer, an ergonomic chair, a corkboard. They painted the walls light gray. When I walked into that room after the transformation, I recognized nothing. It was as if they had erased 30 years of my history with a paint roller. What do you think, father-in-law? Much more functional, right? Functional, modern, minimalist, but empty of soul, empty of me, and the worst was yet to come. Because she did not just want to transform the house, she wanted to erase me completely. She started treating me differently. She no longer called me father-in-law with affection. It was always Don Robert, creating distance. In front of guests, she introduced me as Mike's dad, never as the owner of the house or the one who lived there with him. She stopped asking my opinion on groceries. She simply bought what she wanted, and that was it. She replaced my brand of coffee with her expensive brand. She threw away my old pressure cooker because she bought an electric one. It is safer for you at your age, at my age, as if 67 years were synonymous with incompetence. She started giving orders to Chloe, the cleaning lady that I pay $100 a week out of my own pension. Chloe, you do not need to ask Don Robert. I will leave you the list of what needs to be cleaned. And poor Chloe no longer knew who to obey, looking at me, then at her, with a face full of desperation. Even my seat at the table changed. I used to sit at the head of the table. After all, it was my house, my table. Emily slowly pushed me toward the corner until one day she simply decreed, "Father-in-law, let's switch places. It is better for serving this way." And once again, I gave in. Attorney Harris was right that morning in his office. The invasion was so slow that by the time I realized it, I had no space left. My house had been taken over, my son had been manipulated, and I had become the intruder in my own life. But as I gathered those documents, those proofs, those receipts of every dollar invested, I felt something growing inside me. It was not hate, it was determination. Because something I learned in these 67 years of life is that they can take my paintings, my clocks, my workshop. They can push me to the corner of the table. They can treat me like a bothersome old man, but they cannot take what is mine by right. And this house was mine, and I was going to prove it. 15 days passed since that consultation with Attorney Harris. 15 days in which I lived a lie, faking normality while internally architecting every move. I gathered all the documents he asked for, proof of payment for the house, bank statements, receipts for Mike's college tuition, invoices for remodeling, utility bills for electricity, water, property taxes. All in my name, all paid by me. But life went on, and my son's birthday was approaching. March 23rd, Mike would turn 32 years old. I had always insisted on celebrating that date as if it were sacred. After all, it was the day I became a father, the day my life took on a greater meaning. A week before, Emily appeared in the kitchen while I was preparing lunch. She leaned against the counter, crossed her arms, and said, with that tone of someone who already has everything decided, "Father-in-law, we are going to throw a party for Mike on Saturday. Nothing too big, just about 30 friends. 30 people in my house." My chest tightened, but I forced a smile. "Sure, do you want me to prepare something?" She laughed lightly. "There is no need, father-in-law. I already hired a catering service. Appetizers, snacks, cake, everything is taken care of." I felt a pang. I had always organized Mike's birthdays. Always. From the first one, where I made a simple carrot cake decorated with colorful confetti, to last year when I prepared a complete smoked brisket that he loved. But I could make his barbecue. You know how he likes it. Emily rolled her eyes. Father-in-law, no offense, but we want something more sophisticated this time. Everything is already organized. Sophisticated, as if my food were too rustic, too simple, too old. But I was not going to give up just like that. And the decoration, I can help. I already hired a decorator. It is going to look awesome. Gold and white theme. Very elegant. Gold and white. Wedding colors, not birthday colors. But what did I know? No, I was just the father. During that week, I saw the house transform. Emily received deliveries daily. Rented chairs, folding tables, floral arrangements, boxes of disposable tableware, chic hard plastic plates that imitated porcelain, all paid with the joint credit card that was in my name and that I paid religiously every month. I ended up asking how much all of that was costing. Do not worry, father-in-law, everything is under control. But I did worry, because under control for her meant spending without limit and leaving the bill to me. Saturday arrived. I woke up at 5 in the morning, not because I had been asked to, but because I could not just sit on my hands. It was my son's birthday, and I was going to do something, even if it was against her will. I went down to the kitchen in the dark, turning on only the oven light. I took the meat out of the refrigerator that I had left marinating since the day before. Crushed garlic, black pepper, bay leaf, dark beer, mustard, and honey. The recipe that Helen adored and that she had taught Mike when he was 10 years old. I wrapped the meat in aluminum foil, put it in the oven at a low temperature, 6 hours of slow cooking. While it cooked, I prepared the rice, diced bacon, golden onions, grated carrots, parsley, chopped boiled egg. The smell invaded the kitchen, went up the stairs, filled every room. At 7 there were footsteps. Emily appeared in a nightgown with a sleepy and annoyed face. What is that smell? Good morning, I made barbecue for Mike, she snorted. Father-in-law, I already told you it was not necessary. I already have the whole service hired. I know, but it is a tradition, and traditions are not broken. I saw her jaw tremble, but she did not argue. She just took a glass of water and went back upstairs, stomping heavily on the stairs. I spent the whole day cooking. Besides the barbecue, I made rice with almonds, a fresh salad, homemade red chili salsa, and Neapolitan flan, Mike's favorite dessert since he was little. I arranged everything on pretty plates, the white porcelain ones with the blue motif that my mother had given me. At 3 in the afternoon, the deliveries from the catering service started arriving. Boxes and boxes of snacks, French pastries, pies, quiches. Emily received everything with smiles, checking every item. When she saw my dishes in the kitchen, she frowned, but said nothing. At 5, I went up to my room to get ready. I chose a navy blue shirt that Mike had given me 2 birthdays ago, black dress pants, comfortable shoes. I put on cologne, combed my hair, put on the watch Helen had given me. I looked in the mirror and thought, you are his father. You have your place at this party. I went down at 6. The house was transformed. Golden balloons floated on the ceiling. White flower arrangements decorated every corner. A long table had been set up in the living room, with a white tablecloth and golden napkins. They had even hired a DJ who was setting up his equipment in a corner. The guests started arriving at 7, well-dressed, perfumed couples, with gifts wrapped in sophisticated paper. I recognized some of Mike's old friends, but most were people I had never seen. Co-workers of his and Emily's, new friends from that modern world I was not a part of. I stayed in the kitchen observing. Chloe ran from one side to another, serving drinks. Emily circulated among the guests like the perfect hostess, showing off the house, my house, as if it were her project. We completely renovated this living room. It was very outdated before, you know. Outdated. My living room. My life. Mike arrived at 8, faking surprise, even though he knew everything. Everyone sang happy birthday. He blew out the candles on the three-tier cake covered in white frosting and gold details. Photos, hugs, laughter, and me, standing there at the entrance of the kitchen, invisible, until they called everyone to dinner. The table was served with the snacks from the catering service, the pies, the gourmet salads. My dishes were there too, but pushed into a corner, almost hidden. The barbecue that had taken me 6 hours to make was at one end, as if it were an afterthought. I saw Mike sit at the head of the table, Emily to his right, her parents, close friends, everyone settling into the reserved spots. 30 people around that table, and I was still standing. I took a plate, served myself a little bit of the rice and the barbecue because I wanted to taste what I had made with so much love, and I headed to the table. There was an empty chair next to a couple I did not know. I went over there, plate in hand, about to sit down. That was when Emily stood up. Don Robert, her voice cut through the murmur of conversations. Everyone turned to look. That seat is taken. I stopped, the plate still in my hands. Taken for whom? For my mom, she is on her way. I looked around. 30 chairs, 30 people, and none for me. Emily, it is my son's birthday. I just want to sit down and... Get out of here. I did not invite you. Mike's voice exploded like thunder. Everyone fell silent. The DJ stopped the music halfway through a song. 30 pairs of eyes pinned on me. The words of my son resonated in the room. Every syllable was a stab. I felt my legs weaken. The plate almost slipped from my hands. I looked at my son, that 32-year-old man with a blue shirt and a well-trimmed beard. The one I had carried in my arms, the one I had watched over during nights of fever, the one I had taught to walk, to read, to be a man. And he was looking at me with rage, with shame, as if I were a stray dog that had sneaked into the party without permission. Mike, my voice came out weak, trembling. Dad, for God's sake, do you not see you are in the way? In the way. In my own house. At the party I had helped pay for after spending all day cooking. I felt my eyes burning, but I was not going to cry there. I was not going to give them that satisfaction. I left the plate gently on the sideboard. I took off the apron that I still had tied around my waist. That plaid apron, stained, witness to 1,000 meals prepared with love. I folded it in 4 parts, calmly with all the dignity I had left, and walked toward the door. 30 people in absolute silence. Some looked away, uncomfortable. Others whispered. I saw an older woman shake her head in disapproval, but I do not know if it was for me or for my son. Before going up the stairs, I stopped. I turned around and looked at every face in that room, and I said the only 6 words I could. Enjoy the party. Enjoy it a lot. I climbed those 15 steps with a straight back, my head held high. I went into my room, locked the door, and only then, only when I was sure no one could see me, I broke down. I cried like I had not cried since Helen's funeral. I cried for the lost years, for the ingratitude, for the humiliation for having been expelled from my own life. But in the midst of those tears, a voice inside me whispered, "Enough." And this time, I listened to it. I spent all Sunday locked in my room. I heard when the last guest left, the laughter fading, the gate closing. I heard Chloe cleaning up the mess, the noise of plates stacking, chairs dragging. I heard Emily complain that her feet hurt from her heels. No one knocked on my door to ask if I was okay. Monday dawned cloudy. Mike went to work early without saying goodbye. Emily slept late, as always. At 10 in the morning, I put on simple clothes and went out without telling anyone. I took the bus downtown. I got off at the main square and walked 3 blocks to the county recorder's office. I had to pay the overdue property taxes. Emily had forgotten to pay the last 2 months, even though I had given her the money. The clerk at the counter was young, her hair tied back, wearing glasses. "Good morning, how can I help you?" "I need to pay the property taxes for my house. It is past due." I gave the address. She typed on the computer, frowned. "You are Robert Smith, the owner?" She looked at the screen, then at me, then at the screen again. Do you have an ID? I showed my driver's license and the deed that I always carry in my bag. An old habit, but one that saved me that day. She verified everything, typed a little more, and dropped a phrase that changed my life. Mr. Smith, did you know there is a property transfer process underway? My heart froze. What? Someone started proceedings to remove your name from the deed and transfer the property completely into the names of Mike Smith and Emily Smith. The floor disappeared beneath my feet. I grabbed the edge of the counter so I would not fall. When? 2 months ago, on January 27th. 2 months. While I cooked, cleaned, paid the bills, gave up my space. While I pretended everything was fine, they were behind my back, trying to rob me. And is that process moving forward? No, it is blocked because it is missing your signature. Without it, the transfer cannot be completed. I took a deep breath. At least there was that. Can I have a copy of that application? I can print it, but it costs $15. Print everything. I waited 10 minutes that felt like an eternity. When she handed me the stack of papers, I saw filled-out forms, signature acknowledgments from Mike, false statements claiming that I had given my verbal consent for the transfer. All signed by him and by her, my children, or rather my son and that snake. I paid the overdue taxes with my card, including a $60 late fee. I walked out of that office with my legs shaking and my head spinning. I needed air. I sat on a bench in the square across from the church. Pigeons pecked at crumbs on the ground. A street vendor offered pretzels. Everything remained normal in the world while mine collapsed. I took my cell phone. I called Attorney Harris. Attorney Harris, I need to see you today, right now. Mr. Smith, did something happen? I found out they tried to remove me from the deed to the house. There was a heavy silence. I will be there in half an hour. You can wait for me at the office. I arrived before he did. I walked up those 3 floors because I could not stay still in the elevator. When he arrived, I was already sitting in the reception area, squeezing the papers from the recorder's office so hard that the edges were wrinkled. We went into his office. He read everything carefully, his expression growing more serious by the minute. When he finished, he took off his glasses and rubbed his face. Mr. Smith, this is attempted misappropriation. They forged your consent. If they had succeeded, you would be on the street. But they did not succeed. No, but they tried, and they are going to try again. He opened a drawer, took out a small digital voice recorder. Do you have a smartphone? Yes. Then from now on, record everything. Every suspicious conversation, every argument, every mention of money, of the house, of transfers. Everything. We need proof. I returned home at 3 in the afternoon. Emily was in the living room watching TV, eating popcorn, painting her nails red. She did not even look up when I walked in. Hello, father-in-law. Did you eat already? Yes, I lied. My stomach churned just thinking about food. I went up to my room and waited. At 7, Mike arrived. I heard his voice greeting Emily, the sound of his briefcase dropping on the couch, the refrigerator opening. I stayed lying on the bed, eyes open, cell phone in hand. At 9, I heard footsteps in the hallway, muffled voices coming from their bedroom, which was next to mine. I pressed my ear to the wall. Nothing. The walls were too thick. I got out of bed. I opened my bedroom door slowly, without making a sound. The hallway was dark. Their door was cracked open. Emily always complained about the heat and left it open for air to circulate. I stepped closer, my heart beating so hard I was afraid they would hear it. I took my phone, opened the recording app, pressed the red button, and held the device near the crack of the door. Emily's voice sounded irritated. Mike, I cannot take it anymore. Your dad is dead weight in this house. Emily, do not talk like that. Do not talk like that, my foot. He meddles in everything, gives his opinion, he exists. We need that clean deed, honey, without him on it. I know, but the process is stuck waiting for his signature. Then convince him to sign. Tell him it is to make the inheritance easier when he dies. I do not know. Make something up. Make something up. Lie. Manipulate the old idiot. My hand shook holding the phone, but I did not stop recording. And why do we need that deed so badly? Mike's voice sounded tired. Because we owe $4,000 in credit cards, Mike, exploded Emily. 4,000, plus the car that costs $1,200 a month and that we can no longer afford. The bank is going to repossess the car in 60 days if we do not get a loan. And how does the deed help? We use the house as collateral, honey. We take out a loan for $420,000. We pay everything off, we have money left over, and we finally breathe. But it is my dad's house. It was? It was your dad's house. Now it is ours, and he cannot keep getting in the way of our plans. We have to grow, have our space, build our life, and he is not part of that. Silence, a long, heavy silence. I held my breath, my eyes burning with unshed tears. And what if he finds out? Emily let out a bitter little laugh. Find out about what? The old man barely leaves the house. He does not understand anything about paperwork. He does not have a lawyer. We convince him to sign by telling him it is a tax issue. He signs whatever you ask him to. I do not know, Emily. I feel bad about this. Bad? And what about the burden of losing everything, of having a bad reputation, of going back to a rented apartment? Because that is what is going to happen if we do not resolve this. You decide, your dad or our future. Another silence, and then I heard my son's voice, low, defeated, but clear. Okay, I will talk to him tomorrow. My world collapsed again, but this time there was no surprise. There was confirmation. I went back to my room in silence. I locked the door. I sat on the bed and listened to that recording 3 times, just to be sure it was not a nightmare. $4,000 of debt, $1,200 for the car, a loan of $420,000 using my house as collateral, and my son, my only son, whom I had raised alone, whose education I had paid for, given a roof and food, had made a choice, and he had not chosen me. I took my phone. I sent the audio to Attorney Harris via text with a brief message. Attorney Harris, I have the proof we needed. I need you to speed everything up. I have no more time to lose. He replied in 2 minutes. Received. Tomorrow at 8 in the morning at the office. We are going to strike back. I lay down on that bed, looking at the ceiling. Outside, I heard Emily and Mike returning to their routine, as if they had said nothing. The television on, laughter, normality, but nothing would ever be normal again, because the war had leveled up, and now I had ammunition. I woke up Tuesday with a clarity I had not felt in years. It was not anger. Anger is hot, impulsive, blind. What I felt was cold, calculated, precise. It was justice. I put on my best clothes. The pleated gray pants, the white button-down shirt, the black suit jacket I wear for important occasions. I put on cologne, combed my hair, put on clothes shoes. I looked in the mirror and saw a different man from the one who had been humiliated on Saturday. I went downstairs at 7 in the morning. Mike had already gone to work, coward. Running away before the conversation Emily had ordered him to have with me. She was still asleep, of course. I left a note on the refrigerator. Went out to run some errands. Back in the afternoon. I took the bus downtown. I arrived at Attorney Harris's office 5 minutes before 8. He was already there with fresh coffee and a thick file on the table. Mr. Smith, he shook my hand firmly. I listened to the recording 5 times. We got them. He opened the file. But I need you to understand. What we are going to do now has no turning back. Once we start, it is going to be painful for them and for you. Attorney Harris, it already hurts. It already hurts too much. Now it is time to stop feeling and start acting. He smiled, a sad but proud smile. Then let's move on to the plan. We spent 2 hours in that office. Attorney Harris had everything mapped out with the precision of an engineer. And the best part, he had discovered things that not even I knew. First piece of information. The house was bought exclusively with your money. $400,000 proven. Mike entered the deed as a donation on your part, without any financial compensation. That means legally you can revoke that donation. I can? You can. There are specific legal grounds to revoke a gift or donation: severe ingratitude from the donee, need of the donor, or failure to fulfill a condition. In your case, we have proven severe ingratitude. He tapped the desk where the recording was. Attempted misappropriation, public humiliation, emotional abandonment. I felt a lump in my throat. Emotional abandonment. That was it. My son had abandoned me without even leaving the house. Second piece of information: I investigated their debts. $4,000 in credit cards is no joke. The car, an imported SUV financed over 60 months, pays $1,200 a month and is already 3 payments behind. The bank is going to repossess the vehicle in 60 days if they do not catch up. They have no money to pay. They do not even have money to eat, Mr. Smith. Do you know who pays for the groceries? You. Do you know who pays the electricity, water, gas, internet, the cleaning lady? You. They live on appearances. Instagram full of photos in chic restaurants, designer clothes, trips to resorts. But everything is on credit cards. It is a house of cards about to collapse. I thought about all those times Emily came home with shopping bags. All those times she asked for help with the bills and he said, "This month is tight." All those times that I, with my pension of $1,400 a month, kept the house afloat alone while he showed off. And there is more. Attorney Harris took out another document. The attempted house transfer they did was to take out a mortgage loan of $420,000. I got a copy of the proposal they submitted to the bank. Look at the interest rate, 3.2% monthly. I did the mental math. That was over 40% annually. Exactly. In 2 years, the debt would double. And as collateral, your house. If they did not pay, the bank would take the property. And guess who would end up on the street? Me, the legitimate owner, while they fled somewhere else, leaving me with nothing. I felt something freeze in my chest. It was no longer sadness. It was pure indignation. "What should I do, attorney?" He sketched a thin smile. "We are going to act on 3 fronts. First, a procedure to revoke the deed transfer. We remove Mike's name from the deed, and the house returns to being 100% yours. Second, a lawsuit for moral damages. Attempted misappropriation, humiliation, emotional abandonment. Third, reimbursement of values. You paid $25,000 for his studies, $12,000 for Emily's wedding dress, $28,000 for the wedding reception, $35,000 for the down payment on the car that is in both their names, not counting the house remodels, furniture, appliances. In total, over $213,000 in gifts that can be legally challenged since there was subsequent ingratitude. $213,000. It was almost everything I had saved and invested throughout my life. How long will all this take? We act fast. 3 months for the revocation procedure to be finalized. The compensation for moral damages takes longer, about 8 months. But the important thing is to start now. And there is something we can do immediately. What? A precautionary measure. We ask the judge to freeze any transaction related to the house. They will not be able to sell rent used as collateral. Nothing. And you, in the meantime, can file for eviction. My heart raced. Eviction. It is your house, Mr. Smith. Legally, you can ask them to leave. You give them a 30-day notice, and if they do not leave voluntarily, the law removes them. Imagining my son evicted from the house I had built was painful, but imagining being robbed and thrown onto the street was worse. How much is all this going to cost? Approximately $25,000 in legal fees and court costs. We can stagger it if necessary. $25,000. It was almost everything I had saved for emergencies. But what bigger emergency than this? Let's do it. Attorney Harris reached out his hand. I shook it firmly. You are a brave man, Mr. Smith. No, attorney, I am just tired. Tired of being trampled on. I left that office with a folder full of documents to sign and a deadline. 15 days to gather everything. 15 days to build my defense. 15 days before dropping the bomb. And as I went down in that noisy elevator, looking at my reflection in the scratch mirror, I thought, Helen, wherever you are, give me strength, because I am going to need every ounce of courage that exists in me. The war had begun, and this time I was not going to lose. I returned home that Monday with my head boiling. I came in through the kitchen door, left my bag on the table, and heard voices in the living room. Emily was on the phone, but I no longer cared. I went up to my room, locked the door, and started the work. During the following 15 days, I lived a double life. On the outside, the old Robert who accepts everything. On the inside, a man setting the perfect trap. The 15 days passed. We filed the revocation lawsuit on a Thursday. The following Monday, the judge had already granted the precautionary measure. The house was blocked for any transaction. The bomb exploded on a Wednesday. Mike arrived home at 6 in the evening with a letter from the bank in his hand. His face was white. His lips were trembling. Emily read over his shoulder and let out a scream. Judicial block? What do you mean, judicial block? I heard everything from my room. I walked down slowly, holding the railing, my cell phone in my pocket, already recording. They were in the living room, the letter open on the coffee table. When they saw me, Mike jumped up. Dad, what did you do? I did what I had to do. You blocked the house. The bank rejected our loan. We are blacklisted, Dad. We are going to lose everything. Emily pointed her finger at me, her voice shrill. It is your fault. You selfish old man. We just wanted to fix things and you... Fix? My voice came out stronger than expected. You wanted to rob me. Rob? How absurd. We were going to keep living here. It was just to facilitate a loan of $420,000 using my house as collateral. I dropped the information like a bomb. The silence that fell was heavy, suffocating. Mike looked at Emily. Emily looked at the floor. How do you know that? His voice came out low, dangerous. Because I discovered everything. I discovered the $4,000 debt. I discovered the car you cannot pay for. I discovered the attempt to remove me from the deed 2 months ago. With each sentence, I took a step forward. And I discovered that you planned all this behind my back, in this house that I paid for, while you treated me like trash. Emily recovered her voice, now furious. You do not understand anything. We have bills, commitments, a life. Do you think it is easy to maintain this house? I maintain this house. I pay the electricity, the water, the internet, the cleaning lady. You pay for nothing, because you never let us forget that everything here is yours, she screamed, her face red. Everything is yours, right? The house is yours, the food is yours, the air we breathe is yours. It is mine because I paid for it with my sweat, with my sacrifice, Mike intervened, his voice trying to be conciliatory. Dad, let's talk calmly. We can resolve this as a family. Family? I looked him in the eyes. A family does not try to steal. A family does not kick their own father away from the dinner table. A family does not call lawyers to defend themselves. Dad, Did I what, Mike? He swallowed hard. Did you hire a lawyer? I hired a lawyer, and he advised me to do something I should have done a long time ago. I took a manila envelope out of my bag. I put it on the table next to the letter from the bank. What is that? Emily asked, her voice trembling. Eviction notice. You have 30 days to leave this house. The world stopped. Mike took the envelope with shaking hands, opened it, read it again. Are you kicking us out? I'm asking you to leave. Because this house is mine. It is in my name, and I have the right to decide who lives here. I am your son, he shouted, and for the first time I saw tears in his eyes. How can you do this to me? How could you try to rob me? How could you let this woman humiliate me in my own house? How could you yell at me in front of 30 people? How, Mike? He had no answer. He just looked at me, the envelope in his hand, as if he were looking at a stranger. Emily panicked. We have nowhere to go. You want to see us on the street? You have 2 salaries. You have an imported car. Look for an apartment to rent. Live within your means like normal people do. He's crazy, completely crazy. She grabbed her purse, her car keys. Mike, I'm not going to stay here and listen to this. And she left, slamming the door so hard that a picture on the wall shifted. I was left alone with my son. He collapsed onto the couch, his head in his hands. He seemed to have aged 10 years in 10 minutes. Dad? His voice broke. Can we talk just the two of us? I sat on the couch across from him. I let the silence weigh heavily. I know I messed up. He looked at me with red eyes. I know Emily crossed the line. I know I crossed the line. But you cannot do this. You cannot kick me out like this. Mike, you kicked me out first, when you put her name on the transfer attempt, when you yelled at me at the party, when you stopped seeing me as a father and started seeing me as an obstacle. I never stopped loving you, Dad. Love is not just a word, son. Love is an attitude, and your attitudes hurt me more than any physical blow could have. He stayed quiet, processing. If I leave Emily, if I kick her out, will you drop all this? I looked at him. My son, my only son, the boy I had carried, watched over, raised, and I saw in him not the boy he was, but the man he chose to be. Mike, this is not about her. This is about you, about your decisions, about the fact that you tried to remove me from the deed, knowing that I would be left with nothing, about the fact that you humiliated me. You cannot fix that by breaking off a relationship. It is who you are now. He took a deep breath. When he spoke again, his voice was different, colder. So you chose the house. No, I chose my dignity. You were the one who chose the house when you tried to take it from me. I stood up, took my bag, and before going up to my room, I turned around one last time. 30 days, Mike. That is what the law requires me to give you. After that, if you do not leave voluntarily, the sheriff will take you out, and it will be much worse. I climbed those 15 steps, feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. But when I closed my bedroom door, when I looked at myself in the mirror, I saw something I had not seen in years. I saw a strong man, a man who fought, a man who did not give up. And for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of who I was. Downstairs, I could hear Mike crying. A part of me wanted to go down, hug him, forgive him, because a father is still a father, and that pain never entirely goes away. But the strongest part, the part that had kept me alive, working, fighting for 67 years, said enough. You have already given too much, and for the first time in my life, I listened. The 30 days dragged on like 30 years. Mike and Emily moved through the house like furious ghosts. She did not speak a word to me. He sometimes tried a conversation here, a glance there, but I kept my distance. I had to, because any weakness now would be used against me. On day 10, they hired a lawyer. I received a notice challenging the eviction, claiming Mike was a co-owner. Attorney Harris responded with the donation revocation lawsuit and all the evidence. 2 days later, their lawyer dropped the case. On day 20, Emily tried to emotionally blackmail me. She knocked on my door at midnight, crying, saying she was pregnant. When I asked her for a test, she exploded, called me insensitive, and disappeared into her room. On day 25, they started packing. Boxes piled up in the hallway. I heard them arguing about what to take, what to leave, where they would go. It was then that I received a call that would change everything. Mr. Smith, this is Attorney Harris. I need you to come to the office today. It is urgent. I found out something that involves you personally. I arrived at the office an hour later. He had a serious expression, an open file on the desk, and a tablet in his hand. Please sit down. I sat down, my heart beating fast. Mr. Smith, I kept investigating Mike and Emily's finances, and I discovered something delicate. Look. He turned the tablet toward me. It was a photo. Emily in an elegant restaurant, hugging a man. It was not my son. Who is that? Frank Owens, businessman, owner of 3 hardware stores, married, 2 children. Attorney Harris swiped the screen, showing more photos. Emily and the man going into a hotel. Emily in a luxury car that was not theirs. They have been seeing each other for at least 8 months. I felt my stomach knot. Does my son know? I doubt it. She is careful, but there's more. He took out another document. Remember that attempted house transfer? I found out that the one who suggested it was Frank. He has experience taking out loans using real estate as collateral. He has already done it 3 times with other properties. He used her to get money. She used him. He used her. Or they both used Mike. Either way, that plan did not start with your son. He was manipulated from beginning to end. I looked at the photos again. Emily smiling, happy, hugging another man while my son worked to support her lies. Mike has to know this. Are you sure? It is going to destroy him. I thought about the humiliation I suffered, his shout, the attempted theft. He has to know the truth, even if it hurts. Attorney Harris printed everything. Photos, credit card statements showing expenses in hotels and restaurants during times when Mike was working. Messages he had obtained via judicial procedure. We put together a complete file. When are you going to show this to your son? I looked at the calendar on the wall. Today. There are 5 days left before the deadline ends. He deserves to know before leaving my house. I returned home at noon. His car was in the garage. It was Saturday. Both were home. I went straight up to my room, locked the door, and waited. At 6, I heard movement in the kitchen. I went down. Mike was alone making the sandwich. When he saw me, he froze. Hello, Dad. Hello, is Emily home? She is in the bedroom with her phone. He spoke with an exhaustion I had never seen in him. I need to talk to you. Alone. He hesitated. About what? About the truth. We went to the living room. I sat on the couch. He on the couch opposite me. I put the file on the coffee table. Before you leave this house, before everything ends, I have to show you something. Not because I want to hurt you, but because you deserve to know. Know what? I opened the file. I placed the photos on the table one by one. I saw his face go from confused to surprised, from surprised to devastated. This is a lie, Photoshop or something. No, Mike. The date, the time, the place are all there. Everything is proven. I took out the bank statements. Look here. The Mansion Restaurant, February 15th, 4 in the afternoon. She said she was going to the dentist, remember? He took the paper, his hand shaking. Imperial Hotel, March 8th, 2 in the afternoon. She said she was eating with her mom. Enough. His voice came out strangled. I get it, Dad. You get what? That she betrayed me. That she used me. That the plan to steal my house was not your idea, but hers and this man's. I put the last document on the table. This Frank has a criminal record. 3 lawsuits for fraud using family homes as collateral. He finds married women, manipulates them, takes the assets, and disappears. Mike was white, sweating, his hands gripping his knees. Since when? At least 8 months. He closed his eyes. A tear rolled down. I'm an idiot. You are a man who was manipulated by her, and because of her you almost lost your father. He looked at me, and for the first time in months, he really looked at me, not as an obstacle, not as a problem, but how a son looks at his father. I ruined everything, right? Yes, you ruined it. I took a deep breath. But at least now you know the truth. At that moment, we heard footsteps on the stairs. Emily came down, still in her pajamas, yawning. When she saw the papers scattered on the table, all the color drained from her face. What is that? Mike stood up slowly. He took one of the photos and showed it to her. Are you going to tell me what this is? She looked, swallowed hard, tried to smile. Honey, I can explain. He screamed in a way he had never screamed in his life. Explain. Is he a friend? Just a friend? We were talking about business. What business, Emily? What business does an unemployed woman have with a married businessman? He threw the rest of the photos at her. 8 months. 8 months cheating on me and me not knowing anything. She stepped back, trying to pick up the photos, to hide them. It is not what you think. Then explain the hotel. Explain the restaurants. Explain why this guy was paying while I am drowning in debt. He does not pay for anything. It is a lie from your dad. He made it all up to tear us apart. Mike laughed, a bitter, humorless laugh. Made it up? There are photos, dates, bank statements. I got up from the couch, walked toward her, and said with all the calm in the world, Emily, you destroyed yourself all on your own. I just put the truth on the table. She looked at me with pure hatred. You are a bitter old man who cannot stand to see his son happy. Happy? Mike exploded again. Happy in debt? Happy being cheated on? Happy about to lose my father because of you? It is not my fault that your dad is a selfish man who will not let go of this house. This house is his. It always was, and you knew it? You manipulated me to try and steal it? Emily was breathing fast, her eyes shining with rage. You know what? I am done. I am tired of pretending I love you. I am tired of pretending this marriage is worth anything. I am tired of pretending your family has any value. The silence was brutal. Mike took a step back as if he had taken a punch. Emily continued, now without a filter, unloading years of lies. Do you think I married you for love? I married you for the house, for the stability. I thought it would be easy to push the old man into a corner and keep everything, but he is too stubborn. Get out of my sight, Mike's voice came out low. Dangerous. Or what? What are you going to do? Get out of my sight before I do something I regret. She grabbed her purse, her keys. I am leaving. Yes, but I am not coming back. You can keep your house, your dad, your miserable life. I deserve something better than this. And she left, slamming the door so hard that the lock almost broke. The sound of the car starting, the engine revving, the gate opening, and her disappearing down the street. Mike collapsed on the couch, his head in his hands, sobbing. The tears ran between his fingers, his body shaking. I stood there, watching my son break. A part of me wanted to hug him. A part of me wanted to say, I told you so. But I did something better. I sat next to him. I did not say anything. I just put my hand on his back, making circular motions like when he was a boy and had nightmares. I'm sorry, Dad, he said between sobs. I'm so sorry. I know. I almost lost you. Almost. He lifted his head, his face wet, swollen. How can I fix this? I took a deep breath. I do not know if it can be fixed, Mike. Some things break in such a way that no glue can hold them together, but we can try to rebuild, different, anew. Do you forgive me? Someday, maybe, if you show that you learned. He nodded, and in that moment, with my broken son by my side and the house finally in silence, I felt something strange. It was not happiness. It was not victory. It was justice. It was justice for the humiliation, for the disrespect, for the pain. The truth had come to light, and the truth, although painful, always sets you free. The next day, Emily sent a moving truck to pick up her things. Mike stood completely still in the living room, watching them take out the furniture she had chosen, her clothes, her shoes. Everything packed and taken away. When the truck left, he looked at me and said, Dad, I have to go too. Not because you are kicking me out, but because I need to learn to live alone, to grow, to understand what I did. And he left. He rented a small apartment 6 blocks away, 400 square feet, 1 bedroom, a living room, and a kitchen, $800 in rent that he pays out of his pocket. He took on all the debts. The $4,000 on the credit cards, he staggered them and pays $300 a month for years. He returned the car to the bank. Now he takes the bus like normal people. And you know what he told me? Dad, I am free. Free from pretending to be what I am not. Emily disappeared. I heard from the neighbors that she went to live with that Frank guy. 2 months later, he left his wife and claimed her publicly. But his company went bankrupt because of the lawsuits, and I heard she now works as a sales clerk at a clothing store in the mall. I feel no pity. I feel no anger. I feel nothing. She belongs to the past. The donation revocation procedure was closed in 3 months. The house returned to being 100% in my name. Mike signed all the papers without asking questions. It is yours, Dad. It always was. The lawsuit for moral damages took 5 months. The judge recognized the attempted misappropriation, the humiliation, the emotional abandonment. He ordered Mike and Emily to jointly pay me $50,000. Emily never paid. She appealed time after time, but she will lose. Her lawyer dropped her for lack of payment. Mike came to see me a week after the ruling. Dad, I do not have $50,000, but I am going to pay $200 a month. It will take 20 years, but I will pay every dollar. I looked at my son. I had paid for his studies, the wedding, the down payment on his car. I had paid so much, and now he was offering me $200 a month for 20 years to pay a debt that money cannot even cover. Mike, keep your money, pay your bills. Dad, I need to do this. I need to redeem myself. I thought about it and made a proposal. Then do not pay me in money. Pay me in presents. Come here every Saturday. Bring the groceries. Fix whatever breaks. Keep me company. Show me that you learned. He accepted, and he keeps his word. Every Saturday at 7:30 he is here. Sometimes he brings flowers. Sometimes he brings sweet bread from the bakery. Always he brings a hug. Today is a Saturday in September. 6 months have passed since that horrible night. I woke up with the sun coming through my bedroom window. It is 7 in the morning. And for the first time in years, I woke up without that weight on my chest. Without fear. Without tension. The house is quiet, but it is a different quiet. It is not the heavy silence of those avoiding conversations. It is the silence of peace. I get up, put on my slippers, go down to the kitchen. I make coffee in the enameled coffee pot my mother gave me 40 years ago. The one Emily wanted to throw away because it was too old. Now it is back in its place of honor on the stove. I look around. The house is different. It is the same structure, the same walls. But it feels different, because now it breathes. The lace curtains are back in the living room, the bronze clock. I found an identical one at a flea market. I had the same message engraved on the back. Now it strikes 8 with its soft chime that fills the house with memories. The paintings return to the wall. Helen's photo with a new frame, the landscape, my mother's embroidery, and I added a fourth, a photo of Mike and me when he was 5 years old, in Helen's arms, the three of us smiling in the park. My workshop was rebuilt. The workbench is back, oiled, working perfectly. The toolboxes organized by type on the shelves I had built. And there are orders. 3 living room tables commissioned for this month. 2 dresser restorations. A colonial-style buffet. I make between $800 and $1,200 a month. It is not a fortune, but it is mine. It is the fruit of my labor. I finish my coffee, sit in the backyard looking at the garden. I planted roses. Red, white, yellow. They are starting to bloom. I also put pots of basil, rosemary, mint. The smell perfumes the whole area when the wind blows. That is when I hear the gate. Familiar footsteps down the side hallway. He appears in the patio with 2 grocery bags in his hands. Good morning, Dad. Good morning, son. Mike leaves the bags on the white plastic table. I brought everything on the list and bought that coffee you like, the expensive one, because you deserve it. I smile, a small but sincere smile. Thank you. He sits in the chair next to me. We stay in silence for a few minutes, just looking at the garden, listening to the birds. This is how we have rebuilt, little by little, brick by brick, without rushing. We spend the day together. He fixes the patio faucet that was leaking. He changes 3 burnt-out light bulbs. He cleans the clogged gutter, a son's work that should have always been his. At lunchtime, I prepare beef stew, the recipe he loved as a child. We eat together at the kitchen table, not in the dining room, not at that table with such painful memories. Here in the kitchen, we start again. At 3, he says goodbye. I will be back next week. I know. He hugs me, a tight, long hug. I love you, Dad, and I love you, son. And it is true, because a father's love does not end. It hurts, it disappoints, it breaks. But it does not end. When he leaves, I go back to the patio. The sun begins to set, painting the sky orange and pink. The roses in the garden sway in the breeze. I take my phone, open the photos. There is one I took last week, me in front of the workbench, smiling, holding a walnut dresser I had just finished. The client asks to take the photo. "Robert, you have to immortalize this." I look at that man in the photo. Gray hair, wrinkles around the eyes, glasses, calloused hands, but smiling, truly smiling. And I think of everything I went through, the humiliation, the betrayal, the pain, but also the victory, getting my house back, my dignity, my life. I think of Helen. If she were here, what would she say? "Robert, I always knew you were strong, stronger than you thought." I close my eyes, feel the wind on my face, and whisper, "Helen, I did it. I fell, but I got up. They trampled on me, but I struck back. And now, finally, I am at peace." Today I am 68 years old. I live alone. I cook only for myself. I watch the shows I want. I decorate the house the way I like it. I work the wood late into the night when inspiration hits. And I'm happy. Happy in a way I was not when I shared the house with people who did not respect me. Happy in a way that only comes when you finally make peace with yourself. Mike is learning. Slowly. He stumbles sometimes, but he is learning. And who knows, maybe one day we can rebuild what was broken. Not identical, but new, stronger, truer. And if we do not achieve it, I will be fine. Because now I know that my happiness does not depend on anyone else but myself. The sun sets completely. I turn on the patio light. I take my notebook. I started writing, recording stories, memories. Who knows, maybe one day I will publish them. Maybe they will help someone going through what I went through. I write the last line of the day. I stood up slowly, walked toward the door, and did something that left everyone with their mouths hanging open. I chose myself, and it was the best decision of my life. I close the notebook, smile, and give thanks for the strength, for the courage, for having survived, for being here, alive, whole, free.